from a very early age, I understood implicitly that as a girl, you have to be married off as soon as possible. Um, Education wasn't so paramount within my family, or within the circle of friends within the community in that my family were associated with, um, and I I knew that I had to be married to someone that my family chose. I knew that I would never find someone on my own, and it had to be someone that my family either had a deal with another family. So, for example, from a very young age, two families would come together and say when our children are teenagers, they would be married off. So it's a pre-arranged arrangement before people even came of age, and in the background that was always running. I would attend weddings of brides who were 14 years old when I was much younger, and within less than a year I would see that they were married. At the time I didn't see it as an issue. I just thought it was life that a young girl before she was 15 would have two children, and be married off perhaps sometimes to a man who's much older than her, or sometimes just another teenager. And I just accepted that, and I knew that was coming for me, and it wasn't something that I really thought of as dangerous or as abusive, because I was conditioned to believe that that was my role. So abuse was something so normal. So if somebody said, oh, your husband might slap you, what if you're unlucky and you get a husband who's horrible? It's just sort of like something that would just, it could happen, but it's no big deal because everyone goes through it, all women do. And so, for example, if I sat at home to eat a meal, all the men would eat first, and I would sit down in the kitchen floor and eat from there. So that was to teach girls respect for men. So that's how I had lived my life. And so in a way, looking back now, I understand that I was being conditioned for a life as a wife for a man who would be dominant and I would be a subordinate. When I became 14 years old, this is when I researched forced marriage, but I didn't think it was forced marriage, so I researched arranged marriage, because I understood it as my family were arranging it for me. I'm not being forced because I have to do it, really. They're not going to kill me. Forced to me was death, like you're going to be beaten to death to marry, and that wasn't happening to me, and I felt quite lucky that I wasn't being beaten to death, that I was being beaten enough to control me. I would go out and I'd come out of the house with my long jilbab, which is a long black dress. Underneath would be normal clothing, and I would have my headscarf on, and I would go to school. But then before I reached school, I'd go to, for example, a Morrison's toilet and take it off and shove it in my bag, and I'd go into school. So I became two different people, the one at home and the one in school. At school, I was free and I could talk to people and I could laugh, and then as soon as I reached home, I didn't meet anyone's eyes unless I was spoken to. I didn't say anything, and I was who I needed to be at home in order to not be beaten. I've come to terms with what had happened to me. I've come to terms with what my family did, and but right now, as an adult, I look back and I think, how could they do that to a child? Because I was a child then, and so I'm upset for the child that I was. I'm upset that I was a child so full of hope, and I thought I would be somebody then, and they broke me. And And although now I know I'm not broken, I'm a very resilient person. I feel sorry for the child that I was, because I wouldn't wish that on any child. I had researched leaving home for so long, I knew exactly what to do. I erased my history and my cookies on the computer. I took my passport. I couldn't find my birth certificate. I tried to find my um, uh, secondary school certificates because I thought maybe one day I'll get a job and I might need those, but I couldn't find those. And I packed a bag. So I left and I called the forced marriage unit and through my friend's phone, and I gave them my, actually no, I had a tiny bit of credit that was just enough to call, and I knew that, so I never really used it, and I thought one day I'm going to use this. And it was about 10 p. and I got through to forced marriage unit and immediately hung up, and they called back, and I spoke to a lady and I told her, I'm 19 years old, I'm running away from home, I don't know where to go. And she said, that's okay, I'll talk you through it. And then a week later, the forced marriage unit called me and told me that they had found a refuge that I could stay in. And I had stayed there for 2 months. I registered myself as homeless within the city, and they helped me find a home in which I'm now living in. I was terrified because being in a refuge, they told me that I wasn't allowed to invite anyone in because it was for my own safety. And I was terrified because up till that point, I always had a friend who would help me, just give me company and help me deal with the fear, the enormous fear that was engulfing me. I had never left home. I had never spent more than a night away from my family. When I went to the refuge, they were nice and they helped me. I didn't know my national insurance number. I didn't even know what that was. Um, I had I had no life skills apart from cooking. Um, I did I didn't know anything about anything. I didn't know how to open a bank account, and I was helped to do that. I didn't know anything about benefits, and so they helped me with that. Um, when we went to declare me homeless, I always had my support worker with me. She helped fill in forms I had no idea about. I just didn't know anything. And so she helped me with everything and offered counseling. I only received help 2 years after I had given birth. By then, my child was happy and healthy, and I went back to my refuge and I said I would like to get help. I would like to volunteer, and through volunteering, I think this would really help me because I need some sort of help, but I don't want to talk to a counsellor. And they were able to get me in contact with another charity that helped women from BME background deal with forced marriage and honour-based violence. And through volunteering with them, has reaffirmed my passion for helping other women feel strong enough to get help and to reach out for other agencies to help them. The barriers are so much thicker than I would say perhaps other backgrounds. First of all, our cultural heritage is so different to English heritage, for example. Our family structure is so much more different. So families are so involved in people's lives. Communities are so involved and vested in people's lives that it almost feels stifling. You can't walk around without someone from the community saying, "Oh, so I saw so and so. Oh my God, aren't they embarrassing their family?" So one person acting out is not just one person. It's a ripple effect to the whole family. So that family gets marginalized and isolated because they are the family that had failed. And so my family experienced that, and that's one thing that had stopped me from leaving. I just thought I don't want my family to be targeted by other people. Although I hated them with a passion, I also loved them and I didn't want them any harm. I also thought that people from the outside world, from outside my community, wouldn't understand me, wouldn't know where I'm coming from or my experiences, and therefore they wouldn't be able to support me. I thought that if I contacted other people, I would just lose my family, I'd be disowned. I was always told, I wasn't told that if you left you would be disowned. I have seen other people who had left and they were disowned, and I, although I didn't want to live in that situation, I didn't want to be alone or disowned. So that had kept me for a very long time from seeking help. Personally, I think it should start from a very young age, from education, because schools are the only place for people who are so contained to be outside the family, to be in a new environment where new ideas can be introduced. If I had, even in primary school, if I had known what I was going through was wrong, I think I would have left much earlier. If I had known in secondary school that there are people to help me and I could leave, I would have left much earlier on if I knew there was support there. If I went to RE class, then, for example, and I was told uh, that there are places that people can go to if they experience this, and whether even just the introduction that forced marriage is not okay. Simple things that most people outside the community would think is common sense. Of course, forced marriage is not okay, but for someone who lives in that community, for someone who has no interaction with anything outside her family or school, they don't know any better. And school is the only platform to introduce the idea of the abuse is not okay. I would advise anyone who's gone through something similar to what I had gone through to for them to understand that they are not alone and that there are people and agencies that can help them, but most importantly, the only person that can truly help them is themselves. That the belief that you are much more than what you are being told that you are much more than someone's toy or a punch bowl. That you are much more than just a mother. You are allowed to be yourself and to have dreams and to strive for them. I would beseech them to get help, because they're not just affecting their lives. If they have children, they're affecting their children's lives, and ultimately they can die. And it's so much more important for them to have that self-belief that just they deserve help. And I think that was my focal point. I thought I didn't deserve help, so I had not really sought help much earlier. Not only because I didn't know help was available, but also because I thought I deserved to be beaten. I thought I deserved to be treated like the way I was, because I thought I was worthless. I would just like to say that agencies such as police and social services and charities are so much better equipped now in helping victims than they were maybe a few years ago, and that they will get help and they won't be alone, and that they will always have someone to hold their hand and make sure that they arrive on the other side taken care of. But the person who needs to take care of themselves the most is their own person. They need to take care of themselves, and then there are other people that can help them. That's all I'd like to say.